Oh, hey guys, it's Viejo here, and we're into the last week of July in 2025. It's mid-morning here as I'm filming this, and they've got overcast skies outside, but it's not cold or windy or anything. That cloudiness will burn off here shortly. Hey, what I've got going for you today is not long ago, just a couple weeks or so ago, our friend FortuneCookie45LC, many of you know Fortune Cookie's work from YouTube or Rumble and his Patreon page. Anyway, on his Patreon page, he'd put up a this video series on producing some blaster ammo, range ammo, using some Berry's plated 180 grain bullets. And his result wasn't, 100% to his liking. He thought that the velocities were a little slow, and they kind of are. If you shoot 10 millimeter and you've looked through the data, our data sources kind of point towards around 1,200 feet per second, or maybe a little bit more with a 180 grain jacketed bullet at least. And there's not a whole lot of load data for plated bullets. But anyway, he used some accurate number 9, 12.7 grains. And the Lee book does have a listing for a 180 grain plated bullet using accurate number 9, and they gave a range of between, I think, 12.1 and 13.5 grains of accurate number 9 with a 180 plated. And that range of velocity, according to Lee, would be somewhere around, let's say I wrote it down, 1086 to 1235 feet per second. And that 1235 feet per second is getting up there pretty close to the maximum pressure that we want to see from a 10 millimeter, somewhere around 30,000. That's getting up there, okay? So I thought, well, I had some Berry's bullets. Now, he used a hollow point bullet, and I had some flat point. They're a truncated cone style shape. I'll take a picture here. Here we go. Okay, I'll put it right here so you can see the bullet. That's the one I used, and again, the Fortune Cookie used a hollow point. So I thought, well, I'll see if I can replicate, his load using these bullets and see if I get similar results, and I did. So he, in his test, showed that he had gotten about 1,110 feet per second out of that 12.7 grains with the hollow points, with a standard deviation of around 7. I got a little bit higher than that, I'll show you what I got here in a bit. And so as close as I could come, again, to the bullet with these flat points, I loaded mine on a different press, a little bit different die set, okay? But we ended up with essentially the same cartridge. He used a different primer than I did. He had some old Wolf primers that he's had for quite a while. I think he's almost out of those by now. And I used Winchester primers because that's what I had. So, plus I like Winchester primers for 10 millimeter. Anyway, other than that, the final resulting cartridge, pretty much the same. I loaded them to the same overall length that he did, which was 1.255, okay? Max, I think, is 1.26, somewhere around there for a 10 millimeter bullet. Don't quote me on that. I'm not looking at my Sammy spec right now, but it's in that vicinity. And what I'm going to do here for you guys is I'm going to go ahead and load these guys up. I used my RCBS Rockchucker Supreme press to do the job, and kind of a mix of dies as I typically do. And again, a little bit different die set than what the Fortune Cookie used. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm not going to show you the actual loading sequence. I'll talk to you a little bit about it, and talk to you about the steps and things that I did. And if you want to see the full loading sequence, you got to go to Rumble. Okay, rumble.com. Type in my channel name, which is right here. Okay, it's just Walter Bunning, all one word like that. And you can find the video over there. YouTube won't let us give a live link to other platforms that host video that does not follow YouTube's community standards. So I can't give you that live link. Anyway, let's get into the loading process a little bit, and we'll kind of talk a little bit as we go through. All right. Okay, so here's what we're up to. These cases are all range pickup. They're all S&B, Cellier and Bellow. Okay, we got them primed with Winchester large pistol primers. These cases, wet tumbled them, and then got them all trimmed to length, chamfered and beveled the case mouths. Okay, uniformed the primer pockets and primed them, and they've also been then sized and expanded. So we're going to use some Accurate number 9, 12.7 grains. And there's our, let's focus, there we go, 180 grain bullets. These are, okay, a flat nose bullet. There's a dummy round, okay. That's what it's going to look like when we is done. It comes time to crimp these. Okay, this is a fairly high pressure round, so you know some of our lower pressure semi-auto rounds, just enough crimp to remove the flare might be sufficient, but I like a little bit more than that with 10 millimeter, and I haven't been shooting 10 millimeter all that long. But the first time I shot it, I did some testing with crimp, and I was getting some bullet movement if I didn't have about 2/1000 or so taper crimp. And by 2/1000, I'm talking about, you know, look at the diameter of the bullet and case before you crimp, okay, and see what that measurement is, and then get it down to remove the flare, and then maybe another 1/1000 or two underneath that for a taper crimp. In fact, let's go take a look at a little bit more of, you know, what are we going to look for a number, okay, if we want to quantify how much crimp we need. Okay, so I want to know what the diameter of this cartridge should be with the flare just removed and 0 crimp added. You know, what should be the diameter of the cartridge right there just at the case mouth under those conditions? Well, it should be the sum of the diameter of the bullet and twice the thickness of the case mouth. So we got to get those measurements. So pretty easy to get the diameter of your bullet. You can do that with standard calipers. It's a little trickier to get the measurement of the case wall thickness, since they are, you know, you're trying to measure across an arced surface, but a ball micrometer will do that for you. So let's go get that one. As you can see, these are right at 0.401. Give her that parallax for you. So if we get in here and mic a few of these, okay, there's one that's right at 0.1. I'm miking these just below the end of the case mouth there, because that lip is curled over just a little bit because these have been expanded. So this one is at about 11/1000. Okay, this one, again, about 11. Okay, 10.5, maybe 11. Okay, so let's use 11 as our average case mouth thickness of the case up there. So to arrive at a measurement uncrimped with the flare just removed, that measurement across the diameter of the cartridge should be the sum of the bullet 0.401 and twice the case wall thickness of 22 thousandths, or 0.423. So that's our starting point. Okay, so if we take our our bullet diameter of 0.401 and add twice the case wall thickness to get this whole diameter across that cartridge, that's what our diameter should be down here, just below the case mouth, before we've crimped. And so we can use that as a starting point and subtract a thousandth or two from that, and that will give us a measurement to look for with our crimp. So that's what I did. Okay, to do our crimp, I'm going to use a Lee factory crimp die, and we'll run this guy down until we feel it contact the top of the shell holder. I'll back it off a little bit and then set my lock ring to hold it in place. And then to get our adjustment, we'll go ahead and run a loaded round up in there. Okay, it'll bump across that sizing ring a little bit that's in these guys. And starting with the adjustment screw turned all the way out, then we'll just turn that screw down until we feel it contact the case mouth, and that's our starting point. And then we'll make our adjustments from there, measuring as we go. Okay, so here's one that's at about 0.423 at the case mouth. So I'm going to run that through the crimp die. And then let's see where we got with that. Oops. Well, we only gave it about a thousandth. Maybe we're at 421.5, so let's add just a bit more. Okay, we're at about, I'm trying to get it right at the edge of the case mouth there. See where we're at, 4.2 and a half, 4.20 and a half, 4.21. Okay, oops, you can't see it, can you? Yeah, about 4.21. So that's about right. So we'll leave it set right there and go ahead and run the rest of them. And of course, we want to check these to make sure they're all copacetic with our gauges. Here's the Wilson pistol gauge for 10 millimeter. There's one. You pick another one here. Okay, in and out. Let's get another one here. Yeah, that one was a little tight. Okay, but it went. Of course, we want to check in the barrel of the firearm. So here's our barrel. Okay, and that one, it was a little tight. In and out of there, no sweat. Another one. Okay, you can hear the rounds plunk in there. So those are fine crimps as far as our gauges go. All right, here we are, 50 of these guys. Okay, the Berry's 180 grain flat point. Fortune Cookie used hollow points. Note the maximum suggested velocity there. I doubt that we'll get there, but we might be up around 1200. We'll see. Okay. 12.7 grains of number 9, accurate number 9 powder, Winchester large pistol primers, all S&B uniformed cases, and seated at 1.255 and crimped down to about 0.421. All right, so there's the loading sequence, and then it was time to take these out to the range. And I shot these out of the Kimber Eclipse 1911 in 10 millimeter. That's the only 10 millimeter I have. Fortune Cookie shot his out of a Glock 40. Okay, so a little bit of difference there, barrel length and so forth, but they're close. And they actually shot pretty well for me. I put one magazine full, 9 rounds, is what this one holds, on paper for you. So let's go out to the range and I'll put that up for you and show you how they ran. Okay, there we are, 9 rounds. Went in there pretty good. That one's a little bit out of the picture, but still not too bad for El Viejo. Good load. Okay, there you go with the range footage, and mine did run a little bit faster than the Fortune Cookies rounds did. His were right around 1110, standard deviation 7. Mine were a little over 1150. My standard deviation wasn't that good though, at 13 or so. So I wasn't real, proud of that. But nonetheless, they shot fine. And I would say that, the difference of 40 feet per second or so between his load and my load, that could be the difference in primers, it could be difference in barrel length, okay, atmospheric conditions, whatever. I was up at my range is at about, I think it's close to 3,000 feet. Okay, so it's up there a little higher, so there could be some difference there. Other than that, I would say that, the accurate number 9, 12.7 grains is going to give us in that range of 1110 to 1150 feet per second out of a semi-automatic firearm of standard, barrel length, 4 or 5 inches. A little more, of course, with a longer slide. I think that, might get a little better performance using power pistol. One of these days I'm going to try that. But accurate number 9 has remained available. Power pistol hasn't. So, and I've got plenty of power pistol, but I think it's a viable powder, but the round could certainly stand a little bit more juice, I think. Berries, suggest a maximum velocity of 1,250 feet per second. So we don't want to get much higher than that. And their thinking there is that you get going much faster than that and the plating can start coming loose, and we don't want that. So that's why there's a maximum on their jacketed rounds. They're not likely to have that happen. Okay, I think that's going to wrap this one up. I hope you enjoyed that and got something out of it, but from the Viejo bench for now, that's all she wrote.